Hi, my name is Bob, and welcome to holes 10, 11, and 12 of my in-progress golf it map, A Walk in the Park. So the last milestone, I showed off these few holes where you start getting more into how objects move, and then the final twist is when the bridge snaps, and hole 9 takes place underwater. Now, I did decorate a little bit more, but I left it a little bit open-ended because I did eventually go back and adjust this hole. A little bit of it corrupted, so there still needs to be gameplay placed right here. But rather than the player having one jump they get to practice underwater and then immediately having to try to sink it in a pretty long shot of a hole, instead I made it so they're rewarded if they can properly get it into here. But this hole is still safe about teaching how water physics work. And then, of course, that's immediately ramped up in this next hole, where first you learn about loops and how that properly works underwater, because you're familiar with loops at this point. But this is where you get a little bit more familiar with how they work with the water physics. And then you get your first actual jump, which is just a small one. And that leads into a bigger one, but with a much bigger landing pad. And then you get taught about going down. And then it goes back to being a little bit more safe, where you can still go over, but you're given a lot more leeway with how this hole works. So let me go ahead and show that off. Your very first thing is that I have turned up my DPI. I forgot how hard I was hitting. Your very first hit is with this loop right here. And then either if you fly past that or if you get to this point, you get to make this next jump here. That was not hard enough. And it looks like you're going to overshoot, but with all the water physics, you fall pretty much straight down. And then you can choose to go for this. Of course, I just barely miss it. Oh, wait, a little bit more over here. Yeah, you can see it. I'm still getting used to my own levels. There we go. A bit of a bigger landing pad, so you can't screw it up too much. And then you get to go down here with a pretty long landing strip. And of course, if you fail this next shot, you get to try again. This is going to be a close one. Please. That's just not fair. That's so funny. Is it even possible? I promise they're easier than I'm making them look. Turns out I need more practice. Cool. And then after that, you're led over here into like the bigger reveal, which is like this kind of underwater, like ancient civilization. And this is where the twist is introduced, with it being one super long hole with this first huge curve. This is the first literal curveball you're thrown. I don't know why this is gameplay. You're never going to land here. And then in this one, I made sure to add the hole-in-one. I still have to go back through and work a hole-in-one into this one, and kind of rework the hole-in-one back in this one. I'm not 100% sure if a hole-in-one is possible just yet, but just so I didn't forget later, a hole-in-one is completely possible on this next hole. So how you're supposed to play hole 11 is hitting this right here, and you either land up there or down here. And then you can obviously, there's a big goal right there at the end. By this point, you're taught that the blue net means a goal, and obviously it's like leading you that way. Then your next shot goes over here. And then you may try to hit your shot extra hard this way. But one thing I learned from playing the Golf It levels over again was these holes, or these this kind of thing right here where it's a ramp turned upside down. That way when you hit it super hard, it kind of launches you down. And then either you land up here or you stay down here. And you just have this one last super big hit. And you can see the kind of... Oh, I forgot to include that in the gameplay. That's my bad. Just barely land it. Did I put a game thing right here? I did most of these holes. Or I did this entire section and this next hole. And then it all corrupted, so I had to redo it again. So I forgot to place the gameplay play areas. It's hole 11, yep. So I have to place that real quick. Okay. Now let me go and try this again. Now this one, and then that was way too far, but I should still land down here. So technically it's a little bit more safe than hole 10, but because there's so much different about this hole, I didn't want to go too crazy with it and overwhelm people with a much harder hole, especially because this is supposed to be a bit more of a beginner map. And originally there wasn't a lane right here, but I figured it was a little bit hard because you're taught about arcs underwater, but none of them go too far. So either you hit over or you don't hit hard enough, and hitting that gray area is so difficult that it was definitely a necessity to add this landing strip right here. But if you want to attempt the hole-in-one, I already placed the clover to tell you kind of where the hole-in-one's going to be. So you want to hit this section right here just hard enough to get down there, which I've done tons of times on accident. But, of course, now that I'm trying to show it off, I'm going to screw it up 40 times in a row. But they are supposed to be hard to hit anyway. Perfect. And then this leads you to a pipe that goes through part of the little, I don't even know what to call it. It's kind of arch here that launches you directly into the hole. And boom, over. I don't know how I passed through it without ending the hole, but that's not going to be a problem when the actual thing is. I went straight through that. You learn something new only when you're trying it out. And then the map continues with you in this underground cave, because your character doesn't know how to swim, apparently. And this is the first hole where gravity is taught. Obviously, only this hole is made for now. And then eventually, this hole gets taught, and this one starts out sideways. The underground area is supposed to be super confusing, kind of disorient the player, because that's what mines are really like in real life. They are very disorienting, very confusing. So this is where gravity is first taught in a bit more of a safe manner. So you're like, oh, I gotta get up here, and whoop, and it gets a little bit sideways, and then you're launched up here, and then you get to kind of continue. If you go past it, you go into this little section right here, which you have to hit out of and then back into over on the side, because gravity flips right there. And then you do that one more time before you finish out a pretty standard hole right here. See if I can make the shot. Perfect. And then you can see where the next hole is leading with this track that seemingly defies gravity and goes up the wall. And that's where the next hole continues sideways. And the hole after that is going to be upside down and sideways, and then that's when you pop out of the cave. But for now, these next three holes are going to take place here. And just so I didn't forget, I decorated a little bit and I didn't add the clover yet, but I did finally add a hole-in-one that you can finish out on this level right through here. And it's not a guaranteed chance, but it's a pretty big chance to get it. Of course, it's not going to actually do it now that I'm showing it off. 9 times out of 10 I make it through this. It gets a hole-in-one. It's not super guaranteed. But of course, you try to show anything off, that's when everything goes wrong. So I adjusted my mouse sensitivity, trying to get used to that. Forgive me. Oh my god. Okay. Just in case, I think because of the way I adjusted the last hole over here, it's gotten a little bit different. I'm going to back it up just a smidge and see if that... You know, that's why we play test. Oops. Perfect. I don't know how that worked out because I went over. But yeah, this is the first one where gravity is taught, and of course the next one we're going to expand that a little bit farther, and I'll actually have most of this cave decorated by then. And a little bit of design I did was the little portal in this minecart. If I can find where I am. Hold on. Okay. Jeez. The minecart goes in and then comes out up here and spills over. That's a little story that's told with this hole. But other than that, that's holes 10, 11, and 12. And here's a little bit zoom out of the map so far. I can actually go back and start decorating this area. And this is where the cave is going to pop out. And then holes 13 through 18 are going to take place all along the strip right here on your way back home. And that's about it. Thank you so much.